Is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 173. My name is Zac, I'm your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him He's sitting here midweek, Austin, Texas, on the cusp of the league restart, on the cusp of a big-time double game week, important double game week. But you, back here in Austin, Texas, back from the road. Hopefully, we've got no internet connection issues today. How you feeling, my friend?
I am feeling ready, excited. I have cleansed myself in the waters of the North End, and I'm prepared for this big, massive week coming up here with this first matchup with Toronto. Totally focused on that, ready to hopefully not be hurt again and, see this Austin team bring home 3 points from Canada. Yeah, man, I'm ready to get into it. It sucks to have such a break after that Vancouver game with that awful taste in our mouths and just looking back at, a missed opportunity, a huge missed opportunity, but it's in the past now and we got to move on. There's still work to be done. And I'm excited, man. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, we will talk, of course, preview the Toronto match coming up this Saturday. We'll talk a couple pieces of news to start. We just got a little bit of Austin FC 2 news. Of course, we'll cover that in last business day. We actually will check in on the best keeper in the world as well. A little midweek friendly action. And a programming note here right off the top, our next episode, typically after those Saturday matches, we get on the horn pretty early on Sunday, get that episode out there because you are going on, Tour de next weekend up in upstate New York, a little week-long bike ride. I think y'all's off day, right, is on Monday. So Monday morning, I think we'll convene and recap the Toronto match. So just a note there to all the North End faithful.
Yeah, man, we got to bring the show to them whenever we are, wherever we are. And I'll be on the road on the bicycle, lugging along, chugging up these mountains of the Adirondacks and, bringing the podcast to the people.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I hope that I hope you're in better spirits, better condition than the last time you were on a bike ride and we did a remote pod like that because you had COVID the last time we tried that. So we'll knock on all the wood. We're crossing our fingers for a good ride, that you come back healthy, that all of our players remain healthy throughout this week. And again, to all the North End faithful, just a reminder. If you're watching on YouTube, listening on audio, the best way to support the show is by downloading the audio version of this episode wherever you get your podcast. And if you have the little turn auto downloads on, let that little toggle wherever you get your podcast, you flip that on, you can support the show going forward without having to think about it further. If you want to go the extra mile, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. It also helps us grow the show. You can hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, on this episode, hit the thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, atone for your sins, wash yourselves clean in the waters of the North End. First up here, in terms of the news, the MLS Players Association dropped the free agency list for this coming offseason. And again, just as a refresher, this is not a super helpful document that they put out. It's not even a document. They put this list out in image form, so it's near impossible to search it. But, of course, we're looking at the Austin portion of this report and scanning the other teams, seeing what's coming down the pike. But for Austin, when this was initially released on Monday morning, the 5 names listed were Alex Ring, Matt Hedges, Ethan Finley, Matt Bersano, and Hector Jimenez. And that sent me into about a 2-hour, I won't say panic because I don't think it was that dire, but I was a little bit confused at the very least. Because when you look at section 29.4 of the CBA, it describes the parameters for a player being a free agent. We know we've covered the last 2 years on the pod, right? How free agency is so different in MLS compared to the American sports leagues that you and I are more familiar with. That section says free agency for out of contract and option decline players is available for players who will be at least 24 years old in the year in which the immediately preceding league season concluded and have at least 5 MLS service years. So that Diego Rubio almost laps those qualifications, into his 30s now. This is season 9 in MLS for Diego Rubio. And then again, about 2 hours later, that image was revised. Diego Rubio now on that list as well. So we've got those 6 guys eligible to be free agents this offseason. The only one that is listed as out of contract, of course, is Hector Jimenez. The rest are pending the option, as are the majority of names on this list throughout the league. But the other guys with 2024 options, just to be thorough here, these guys have their 2025 options rather, but not eligible free agency: Hader Obrian, Johan Valencia, Brendan Heinzike, Danny Pereira, and Jamie Farkalin. So again, no real surprises here. I guess it is nice to see that none of those guys have, or the ones that qualify for free agency rather, none of them are missing on this list because there is some sort of auto trigger in a contract that would keep them off of it. So again, no real surprises here. Anything to add for you on the free agency list?
I was just going to say, I can't really blame you for going into a 2-hour non-panic search mode, given the track record that we've had with as being Austin FC fans and guys just getting new contracts for showing up. So I get that. And you look at that list, like you said, no real surprises there. A couple names I would welcome back in diminished roles with diminished contracts, if that were available to us. And, I've been thinking about, in this stretch that we've had here after this Vancouver game and everything that's swirling around, and obviously looking forward to 2025 and having more money available, more roster spots available, and all of these things that we've been looking forward to, while keeping in perspective, these last 7 games here that we have to get to this home stretch and everything. And, it's just been an unfair kind of situation for a lot of these players. They've been asked to do too much in regard to how talented they actually are. You look at the list of names that you have there with Alex Ring, Hedges, Hector, Rubio, and stuff like that. And I felt like maybe at times I could have been a bit too critical on some of these guys because of the roster construction that took place under the Reyna regime, and the fact that it just wasn't a competent job that would put forth a team that was going to be able to compete at the highest level. So all of that to say, I would welcome some of these dudes back in a diminished role on a team-friendly contract, because I do think that they have intangibles, aspects, components of their games that are helpful and constructive for building a quality team. Mm-hmm. It's just that they've been thrust into positions that they necessarily weren't prepared for.
Yeah. I mean, I was already discussing these names with some other friends, like our buddy Mike, right? We were talking specifically about Ethan Finley this morning, right? Yep. He's on right around like $300K, if I recall correctly. And again, coming off here with the option, like, can we get him on a little bit of a cheaper deal? Maybe even a veteran minimum, like get one of those supplemental spots. Like that would be awesome roster building at this point of Ethan's career. But just given his track record in the league, his standing, not just as a player, but one of the leaders of the Players Association as well, like it may be likely that one of the other 28 GMs or sporting directors rather would take a shot on him for right around this salary. But again, just kind of a preview of what we're going to be discussing through the majority of November and December. Looking on that list too, the majority of these players from the other 28 teams are pending options, but some that stuck out to me that are just straight up out of contract. You've got a trio of LAFC defenders: Aaron Long, Jesus Murillo, Ilie Sanchez will be on the market. Our boy Felipe out of contract there in Orlando. So again, you can go to MLSplayers.org and find this list for yourself if you want to peruse the full list. And again, we will bring this back around probably after the season and go through some of these pending option guys that we would maybe want to chase if we had the chance. The next piece of news here on the docket E actually has to do with one of our now former academy players, and that would be Viggo Ortiz. And I will say this was, for lack of a better term, I guess, an oversight by me when I was looking at those academy rosters when they dropped about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks ago, maybe. I noticed that Ortiz was not listed on any of the rosters. And I think I personally just kind of brushed it off as like, maybe something happened, this or that. Maybe he is there and they just didn't list him. Again, you look at the Players Association not listing Diego Rubio and fixing that later. So I didn't think much of it. Then Muntar comes out on Tuesday morning, and Landon's there, Landon and Jeremiah are sitting there talking about rumors surrounding Viggo Ortiz and why he may not be listed. And I believe Landon hinted at the fact that he found some sort of report about Ortiz getting a new agent, or maybe just getting a agent in the first place. And then that there was the USM&T Prospects Twitter account. Whoever runs that account had put something out about some smoke, I guess he was hearing about Ortiz going to Charleston. And that indeed came across from Tommy Scoops, Tom Bogert, reporting on Tuesday afternoon that Viggo Ortiz did indeed sign with Charleston Battery. That tweet read like this: sources, Charleston Battery finalizing a deal to add Mexican youth international Viggo Ortiz to an academy deal. He will train with the first team. Ortiz, 16 years old, was with Austin FC's academy and, of course, was named the U15 MVP at the GA Cup as Austin won the tournament. So to me, that was like not great news, right? We remember watching him at that GA Cup tournament. We know we don't have a ton of, right? We're not overflowing with names coming out of our academy right now that appear to have a clear path to first team minutes in the near future. So I was just, again, I don't think in the grand scheme of things, this is a big deal for Austin FC. Mm-hmm. I think it's a bigger deal for Viggo and maybe just giving us a little clarity on his thinking there, whether it's, I can get paid more from Charleston. Charleston is also a USL club that has sold two players in particular, young players, just in the last year or so, Fidel Barajas and Nick Markinich more recently. So again, if his goal is to go play overseas in Europe, maybe go down to Mexico like Fidel Barajas, right? Barajas was sold, I believe, back in January, according to Transfer Market, to RSL for about $1 million. RSL turns around and flips him to Chivas for $4 million in the summer. So again, I can get the thinking there behind Ortiz or maybe his agent, the combination of the two. But then Charleston puts out this press release this morning about the signing, and this just stuck out to me. Viggo Ortiz, whether he did this quote himself or it was his agent, this is a direct shot at Austin FC. He finished his statement. We don't need to go into the rest. He mentions Barajas and Markinich, but he says the club, meaning Charleston, doesn't just talk about pathways, they make them happen. And we know that Austin uses that vernacular, right? The pathway, Austin's pathway, that's what they call Austin FC 2. So again, I don't think this means much. I personally would have liked to see Ortiz, or I don't care who it is. I want to see our academy start to, over the next couple of years, produce first team contributors at the very least. And I will say, we put out a little tweet, with the little Snoop Dogg meme with the big eyes and the Austin FC logo with that quote. And I know that there was at least one ex-Austin FC player who liked that tweet. So again, I think it boils down to these young competitive athletes just, again, being ultra competitive when they do or say or push like on certain things. They definitely feel some type of way. You did not have to add that last part if you're Viggo Ortiz or his agent.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to put that just on Viggo. I'm not sure if that was, words that were placed in his mouth or not, and I can't speculate.
It wasn't Charleston that said that, right?
Yes. It came from his camp for sure. I wish him the best. Absolutely. And like you said, I echo your sentiments that I would have liked to seen him be able to come through our academy and potentially have this pathway to get to some minutes at the first team. But, all in all, he's got to do what's right for his family, himself, his career, so much time effort, money, blood, sweat, and tears put into this journey of his. So I absolutely wish him well. I thank him for his contributions to the Academy Club, and I hope it works out for him. Whatever goes, whatever comes of it.
Yeah. I mean, and I imagine, again, if you want to speculate about what happened here, I would think he's probably looking for, or was looking for, rather, like a Micah Burton-esque homegrown deal, 4 or 5 years, lock in that money, right? And that first team contract. And if Roto ain't ready to give it to him, guess who I'm riding with?
Yeah, totally understood.
International results from the early part of the week. Two that, okay, they happened. I'm not losing sleep over it. Finland, 2-0 loss to England at Wembley. Harry Kane brace. I don't think you got to feel too bad about that if you're Finland. Leo on the bench did not play. Costa Rica, 0-0 draw against Guatemala. Julio on the bench also did not play. And then you look at Venezuela. Taking on Uruguay, and they end up getting a 0-0 draw, which I think is a pretty darn good. Suspensions or not for Uruguay, that's a pretty darn good result for Venezuela. But Danny Pereira, not just not starting as he did against Bolivia, of course, not in the team at all. So, my levels of worry here are not elevated too high, but I'm just wondering now, as I guess this can transition us into a Toronto preview. Did he get hurt against Bolivia? He came out in the 58th minute. Again, I turned that match off in the 47th when they gave up the third goal. So I did not see if he hobbled off or anything like that, but I haven't seen anything reported. I would imagine if he came off and was visibly limping or anything like that, there were Austin fans still tuned in, and we would have heard something about it. So again, I'm not sounding the alarm rather right now. But it was a little bit confusing to me.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I think of is, oh shit, here we go. Like the one guy who we could not afford to lose in this international break has now caught some kind of knock, some sort of ding, and is going to be limited or out. So yes, I was not panicking, but I was definitely not pleased to see that. But then you look at the track record that Danny has had with that club, not getting any time in the Copa, seeing some time here. So I can understand that maybe that there was something going on with the coaching staff and wanted to get some rotation and everything like that. I will just be waiting for the news to come in about what happened there, if that does come, and hopefully everything just goes forward as planned and he'll be here ready to roll up in Toronto, and we'll have him in the starting 11, which we desperately need.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully we get some clarity at Thursday media availability. I imagine that is coming tomorrow. And then if we don't, we'll know by Friday, right? If he's on that injury report or not. So let's go ahead and jump in here to the match preview. And I know, E, that you were on the preview here this week, but I just wanted to real quick kind of walk us through a little bit of a Verde time capsule, if you will, because we have only met up with Toronto once, and that was last season at Q2 Stadium in May. But here were some of the conditions around that game. And again, just kind of thinking about how different things are in many respects for both of these clubs in those last 15 months. And it feels like an eternity ago in that match. Alex Ring started at center back. So that takes you back, right? Driussi was out due to injury. That was I believe the groin, right? We got the surprise against Portland about a week or two before that where he was out. That was during that period. In Austin's starting 11 in that match, it included names like Rodney Redis, Nick Lima, Maxi Urruti, and Sofiane Jafal, who started and played 90 minutes in that match. So that's where Austin was at that point of the season last year. Austin, though, in that match, took 16 shots, which is a mark that the team has not exceeded at Q2 Stadium in a league match since then. Also in that match, Toronto's Mark Anthony Kaye was given just a yellow card for spinning Sofiane Jafal around by his jersey, throwing him to the ground, and then standing over him. Matt Hedges started at center back for Toronto FC, and Adrian Healy was on the call on Apple TV's broadcast. So again, feels like an eternity since that match, but just about 15 months since all of those things were going down. But again, we're up there north of the border, BMO Field. So I'll let you take it away for the rest of this.
Oh man, I'm just thinking back to that matchup too, and everything that was swirling around with Toronto, and you got Bernadeschi vaping in the locker room or on the plane or something along those lines. This is the game where this is the game where he kind of comes out and like is on the sidelines.
Dude, he was like smiling at us when he walked by the north end, and they're just, I mean, again, it was 0-0 at the time, but it definitely didn't look like he was giving his full effort. And again, that match was 6 days before the story broke on The Athletic about the vaping, about the dysfunction in the locker room. So all of that was all coming to a head at that point. And again, of course, Austin won that match on Giassi Zardes winner in the first minute of stoppage time, which was just an insane goal.
Yeah. Oh my God, that goal was absolutely incredible. I'd like to revisit that for sure. If you're an avid Austin FC fan, which if you listen to this podcast, I imagine you are, it's definitely worth a watch to see Nick Lima take a backwards header that launches off the crossbar. Julio Cascante in a Renaissance style painting lying on the ground in front of Sean Johnson to prevent him from moving, and then Giassi dunks it into the back of the net. Obviously we're going crazy, having a wonderful time. But let's fast forward to now and this Toronto FC team who sucks. And I've said that they have sucked for a long time, and this is one of those middling Eastern Conference teams that we see. If they were in the Western Conference, they would be bottom feeders. We'll start with the players on the team that are quite talented and still are impact players, and for Bernadeschi and Lorenzo Insigne, who just add an element to their offense that puts them at the forefront of the Eastern Conference, not the forefront of the Eastern Conference, but puts them into relevancy in the Eastern Conference because of the caliber of those two players. But then you look at the larger picture and the stats that surround this team. They've given up 50 goals. They're sitting on 33 points. We have a game in hand on them. And they're just not a good team. They're not a good club. And I mean, I was on here before we jumped on here, and we're talking about this. And if this is a potential season-ending game, and while it's not the end of the season if we don't get 3 points out of this or a result, it sure would feel like it, because you just look at this Toronto team and we are more talented, we're deeper, and we're just a more cohesive unit than this Toronto FC club. And it's just a game, in my opinion, that we absolutely have to win, because you look at the rest of the schedule here going forward, and it's going to be tough. You can't sit here and say, oh, yeah, well, if we don't get a result versus Toronto, then it seems likely that we're going to be able to get a result versus a team like LAFC or the RSLs of the world or Portland or the Galaxy. So, this is a game to me that it's all about us and responding to what we put out there and the effort and the horrible, horrible play that took place in that Vancouver matchup. And we were chatting again right before this episode, and we're talking about how, we thought everything was going to carry over and kind of roll over into that Vancouver game after some very impressive performances before that matchup. And now I'm just kind of sitting here and a bit confused. You have these guys away on international duty and break and things like that. And I just don't think that's a great thing for Austin FC, trying to build that continuity, trying to find this identity still with these new additions rolled in here. But if you just look at these two teams on paper, we are absolutely better than them. And I know it's difficult to get results on the road in this league, but this is a game that you have to be up for, have to be awake for. We cannot be giving away things in the early moments of this match that give them any sort of life, but it is yet to be seen. And look, man, as much shit as I have talked right there about Toronto, it is hard to have, just full chested, pumped up chest confidence about our ability to go up there and get the job done.
Right.
And
that's what we do here.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. And, like I said, I've been soul searching since that Vancouver matchup to see if we can, feel super confident about this. And it's been difficult. So they're going to have to go out there and show it. And I think they can. I really think we can.
Well, there's a lot of similarities, I think, between where the two, not necessarily in how each team got here, but again, you mentioned, right, they're a point below us in terms of the Shield standings. We've got a game in hand. They are coming off Vancouver's a much better team than DC United, but they just lost 3-1 to DC at home, which again I think is similar and probably worse than Austin losing to Vancouver at home in the grand scheme of things.
Yep.
They went on a 9-match winless streak from May 25th to July 6th in the league, just 2 draws and 7 losses. But they've gotten some big results on the road. Like, while we were defeating Nashville on the road right back on the 24th, they were stealing 3 points out of Houston, little smash and grab, 1-0 there, which was, a big upset.
Yep.
They also beat Pachuca, and I know Pachuca isn't the best team in Liga MX right now, and that the Liga MX team struggled in the Leagues Cup, but they beat them in the Leagues Cup group stage and advanced and lost to Inter Miami in the round of 32, 4-3. And schedule-wise, similar to Austin, I think this is one of the more winnable games left on their schedule, Chicago Fire being the other one. So I think both teams are coming in here pretty desperate.
Yes.
And go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say, they're sitting right there in the 8th position in the Eastern Conference. They're 4 points back of Orlando City, who have a game in hand, who also have a positive goal differential as opposed to Toronto's -14. And if you were able to control to the best of your ability, at least limit the opportunities for Bernardeschi, Owusu, and Insigne, they just don't have much outside of that. And you see the 50 goals given up. You can score on this team. This is a team that you can absolutely score on. So I'm with you there. I think, like we said about the Vancouver matchup, like, this is a game that Vancouver's looking at like, oh, we got to get this one versus this Austin team. This is exactly how Toronto has to feel about us as well.
Yeah, and those 3 names you mentioned, right? Bernardeschi, 8 goals, 8 assists in his 24 appearances. He started every appearance this year. Insigne, 4 goals, 7 assists, but only 19 appearances, 15 starts. He's dealt with injury on and off throughout the season. And then Prince Owusu, 7 goals in his 25 appearances. And stylistically, right, if you're looking at the Opta stats that they put out, right, when we talk about style of play offensively, right, the high turnovers we like to look at and get a feel for what a team is going to do on paper defensively with their style. Where's the support number for Opta? They have not updated these stats since August 5th, so we're a couple games behind here, and this is somewhat outdated data, but offensively, like, these two teams, Toronto is next to Austin in terms of direct speed of their passing sequences and passes per sequence. They like to play out of the back. They're pretty slow. Again, you can infer that from being next to Austin in those statistics through the first 24, 25 games of the year. And as you mentioned, right, conceded 50 goals already this season. That's 1.8 per match. So they will give it up. So sweet. If we can generate those chances, right? Similar to what we saw against Nashville and LAFC. But the regression against Vancouver, like you hinted at earlier, just makes it really tough to have any sort of real confidence that this team is going to be able to replicate what they did. But that's not stopping me from thinking that we've got a shot to get back to what we thought was going to be a new-ish normal for the stretch run. And again, I think you are in luck that we're not starting this week off with LAFC on the road, right? I feel much better about this game and hopefully bringing home 3 points and then playing with a little bit of house money on Wednesday, knowing what's coming on Saturday.
Yep, absolutely. You look at their expected goals as well. They're outperforming that slightly, but still they're at they're 1 slot above us for 3rd worst in the league. And that's just really on the back of the skill and talent that Bernardeschi and Insigne have. Like, you've seen some absolute banger goals from those guys this year if you've been paying attention to MLS in its totality. So, like, again, you're just going to have to be able to limit those guys. And I think with the usual typical format, style, strategy that we go into these types of road matches in regard to particularly the defensive side of the ball, into getting blocks and just like allowing Stuver to have shots that he can handle and deal with. When you look at Bernardeschi and things like that, you have to notch that up a little bit more, because if he creates a little bit of space for himself, he's going to put something pretty dangerous on frame more often than not, and he's not afraid to let that thing rip. So to me, that's where it really boils down to. If you're able to hone in on particularly Bernadeschi and limit the amount of chances that he's going to be able to get, I feel good about it. What do you think we're going to be? What do you anticipate the style, like stylistically, what we're going to look like out there on the offensive side of the ball?
I mean, offensively, I would expect us to try to take more of those counter chances that were just, for whatever reason, like some inexplicably to me, that we just weren't even really trying against Vancouver at home, right? In the friendly confines of Q2 Stadium. But like, because we saw that against LAFC, like trying to take those chances, right? A lot of long balls bombed down that right side towards number 7. And I think that's like, as we just kind of transition here into to us, I think one of the biggest questions about the lineup and who's going to start on that left wing, right, between Johnny G and Hader Obrian, I know coming out of the Vancouver match, I know you called for a change there and to see Hader, see kind of the double elite speed guys, right? But to me, the more thinking I've been doing, again, I don't hate Hader. We've said that really since Osman worked his way into the team, right? Where there's going to be choices in that lineup. There's going to be changes. And ultimately, we're fine with either. I think for me, I feel still a little bit more solid on that defensive side with Johnny in there, especially if you've got Bernadeschi coming down that right side. So I'm fine with either. I think it's going to be Johnny again. But we'll see, man, because I think I didn't see, again, we didn't really say many guys at all besides Stuver, a little bit of Biru, right? Had good games against Vancouver. John was certainly, I would think, in that 6 or 7 players list that Josh said he had in his head. So maybe we do see a change. Like, are you still gung-ho, give me Hader opposite Bukhari here to start this match?
I think I am. And I think for the reason being that Toronto is willing to give up goals. And if you can get out in front of this team early, then you can bring Johnny in later and have him be a bit of a more defensive presence. I'm interested to see what type of formation we're in. Are you anticipating a false 9? Because I am kind of scared that we are going to be in that.
Yeah. I don't think it makes me like scared, but that is the one thing I'm glad you brought it up. That is, I think, maybe I was
burning question, really.
Yeah, maybe I was bearing the lead a little bit at the top to, or just again glossing over that. I don't know, man.
I don't know. I mean, I think like what I thought the way that we kind of broke it down after the Vancouver game, which very well could have been an overreaction, right? Sure. Because we're coming off that absolutely embarrassing performance. I labeled it the most disappointing game of the season. And obviously emotions were running high. We knew the weight, the gravity of that game and how important it was to be building these points and stacking these points as you get to the latter part of this season where you're going to face some of these Western Conference juggernauts. And
but you haven't backed off that feeling though, right? Like it still was, right? That still holds up to me that was the worst performance we've seen.
Oh, absolutely.
90-minute performance. Okay. Just making sure.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just saying that when we labeled the false 9 kind of role as a bit of a one of the, like the ruler on a Swiss Army knife, something that you could bust out, like it's not necessarily a tool you're always going to be using, but something you can have in your back pocket to kind of maybe make up a talent gap versus a better team. Because like you saw it against the LAFC. I don't think Nashville's better, but you saw it there as well. On paper, again, I think we're better than Toronto. And I said after that Vancouver game that all we needed to do instead of getting cute and kind of trying to overthink this thing was just go out there and be a better club than the team that we were playing. And this is a Toronto team that I absolutely believe that we are better than, particularly with the new additions in here now and people we're healthy. So I would not like to see it, but I don't want to say that I'm completely off of that formation and that we need to throw it away and that it doesn't have some sort of use. I do think it's something where you go into an LAFC matchup on the road, maybe you bust it out then just to see what you're working with here. But versus this Toronto team, I want G at the 9. I want Hader on the wing. I want Osman on the wing, obviously. 10 back at the 10. And like that chance generation that I have been expecting and wanting and anticipating from Osman, demanding so much attention to get some space to 10. We have to get this man the ball. And the fact that we were just unable to do that versus Vancouver leads me to really not want to see that lineup versus this Toronto team for some of the reasons that you brought up in regard to the similarities between these two clubs. And I think if you're just able to funnel this ball to 10 as much as possible and allow his talent to kind of dictate how this offense is going to look, then it's just going to be look much better to me. Well, I guess it can't look worse than what we saw versus Vancouver.
Wow.
And then again, like I said, if you're able to bring Johnny off the bench and if you're also able to bring Owen off the bench, I think that provides you a bit more flexibility. If you're in a pinch, in a bind, if you're up, you get Johnny in, you have that defensive prowess that he does have. And as much as I have been critical of Johnny as of late, that is a part of his game, an element of his game that I don't think is ever really going to go away. I think he's probably a bit more comfortable as a defender kind of now. Like we thrust him into this winger position after we've stashed him in the back for it's been 2 years plus now, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
So like, I think maybe those instincts that he has in the defensive side of the ball can shine through a bit more, but I want hot air out there. Like, I mean, again, like I brought it up versus after the Vancouver matchup, he's the leading scorer, right? Like he has the most goals in the team.
I believe so. Either that or tied.
So like we got to find a way to generate some goals, man. And this is a team that you can generate some goals against, and you can actually kind of get right and be feeling good about yourselves after feeling absolutely terrible. I hope that practice and training, these guys have been locked in after, I hope some self-reflection, because again, it wasn't 6 or 7 dudes who sucked versus Vancouver. It was 9 or 10.
Yeah.
So, I do think we're going to shift away from this false 9 lineup here.
Yeah, I do as well. I agree with you that it would be Owen out of that midfield for me and to the bench. I think I'm still slightly Johnny over Hodder here, just for those defensive concerns that I was talking about. But again, if he's off the bench, then you do have a little bit more positional flexibility in your subs than just Aubrey on there.
And I mean, like we talked about with Biru and everything, and his willingness to accept challenges and take on challenges like that, and you're going to get some Insigne Owusu around him and things like that. So like I feel comfortable with him. Again, I need to, like, you think a Svatak start?
I literally took the words out of my mouth.
It's not fucking hot up there. Like, it's, you know what I mean? So like, yep. I got to see that too. We got to see what we have. Like, we had the episode with the Verde Pendant boys.
76 degrees.
Oh, come on, man. That's perfect. We had the episode with the Verde Pendant boys, and one of the things that came out of that I felt was like really, really resonated with me is that we need to go out swinging if we're going to go out, because especially Josh, like if this is it, brother, like I hope you go out in a blaze of glory and you're putting your best players out there and you're putting your best foot forward and you're trying to get this job done by any means possible. And again, if you drop this game, if you get 0 points from this game, I have a hard time putting our chances of making the playoffs in the double-digit percentages. Like it'd be hard to say 10%.
What would you put them at right now as we sit here today? And again, we're saying wild card. Right?
Yep. I mean, again, I think we're locked into the 9. If you're going to make it, it's the 9. Like I don't forecast us catching Portland's of the world, the Houston's of the world, 2 teams that have really come into their own as the season has come along, despite, Houston's poor result versus a very diminished LAFC team, but they had already gotten 3 points off of them just a few days prior. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say 40% because I felt pretty confident early on, like as we were preparing for these last 9 games, that we were going to be able to get this job done, just given the schedule where you saw Nashville, you saw a Vancouver team coming in here, you see this Toronto team as well. I thought we were going to be able to stack points, and I thought potentially you could try to get some rotation versus LAFC and maybe eke out a 0-0 draw up there where we get outshot 37,000 to 4, whatever it would have been. So I would say 40%. And again, I might have bumped that up a little bit because I'm trying to overcorrect from my overreaction to the Vancouver matchup and how dismal that absolutely was. But what would you have him at?
I think like 1-3, which again feels like a cop-out answer because it's us and two other teams really vying for that 9 spot right now. But I also don't want. It's not likely, right? It's a much lower chance that you're able to get above that 9 seed and climb into an 8th and host the wild card or even higher. But the path to do it is there, right? Like you play Portland, you play Houston. So again, like you still very much control your own destiny. If you take care of business, you win your 3 home games and you win one of the 4 road matches that are left. 12 points, 46. We're there.
Yeah.
But it's way easier said than done.
Absolutely.
And how are you going to say with any sort of confidence that you can win 3 home matches when what you just did at home?
So you're not looking to have the false 9 lineup, but get a Johnny start. And you're with me there with Owen to the bench again. And I go back to words that came directly out of Josh's mouth.
Yeah.
I can't bench guys because we don't have players. Well, dude, we just saw the worst performance that this team has had the entire fucking season, and there needs to be some sort of repercussion for that. Yeah. Like, it has to. And Owen was one of those guys who looked like dog shit.
Disappeared.
He was horrible. He was just non-existent. He was not on the field. So, I need to see these guys get right by getting to the bench and understanding that you have to play better. You have to find ways to make impact on these games, and that are just absolutely monumental right now. So, and look, if there's ever been a dude who's going to be calm and collected and cool in these types of situations, it's going to be G. Right?
Sure.
You're going to get steady, consistent work from him.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to, potentially pair balls coming in from Bukhari with G is something that I have to be able to get excited about because of how shitty it did look last matchup where 10 was not able to generate anything, despite the fact that we were constantly getting balls over the top to Buka. We were trying to feed him really consistently. So I want G at the 9. I want 10 back at the 10. Give me Cap, Alex Ring, paired up there. Danny, fingers crossed that nothing's going on there.
If Danny can't go, is it Owen or the Punisher for you?
Johan. Again, I'd rather be able to be like, okay, I look down my bench. It's a 1-0 game. If we're down one way or the other,
direction, right?
And have the flexibility of Owen to be like, okay, we're going to have to get it aggressive here, and we're going to have to move guys up, and then go from there.
And that has to be earlier than some of the maneuvers we've seen in the second half substitution wise, right? Like to me, it's 55th, 60th minute. If it ain't under our control at that point, I'm with you. Aggressive changes in the mid game.
If we come out and
it's based on game state, right? If it's 0-0 and you look good and you're keeping possession and you're beating them in shots and touches in the box and all this stuff, keep knocking, right? But if there's any sort of uncertainty,
if it looks anything like it looked versus Vancouver in that first half, dudes need to be sat on the fucking bench, and we need to get some rotation in and try to get some life into the lineup.
All right. Well, I think we're probably approaching, if we haven't already passed the point of us just talking in circles as we tend to do when we're previewing these matches. Last thing, Fatak start or no?
Fuck me.
I say yes for Hedges.
I hope so. Yes. If it's me, if I'm at the top of this staff and I'm making the decisions, it's Fatak.
Again, we haven't seen him fucking do anything.
Whatever.
Since the Euros.
I saw him play. I saw him play Lukaku. Okay.
Yeah.
So I got the scout down, but yes, we are approaching the point where we're just trying to convince ourselves that we're a good team,
or at least a 9th seeded team. Yeah. One thing left to do. How much is Austin FC winning by on Saturday in Toronto?
I'm gonna go 3-2. I think we're gonna be able to score on them. I do think they're gonna be able to score on us. And I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope I don't have to sweat through a fucking 3-2 matchup versus a Toronto club who is not very good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go 2-1. Again, I think there's going to be goals scored in this match. So I got 2-1 victory. He's got 3-2. And man, like, I will differ from you. Put me through all the suffering you want, as long as it's 3 points.
Okay.
I don't care how you get it done. Just bring home the victory, and we can take a fucking breath for Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because look, you are also staring down the barrel of the nightmare scenario.
Mm-hmm.
You have 3 games in 8 days, and if you lose all 3, how in the world is there not a coaching change on Sunday the 22nd? If that happens, but that is I think that is a closer to a reality than I care to even think about.
Yeah,
this team just craters this week, because we've seen it almost every season. September is not kind to this team historically, and I know it's not a big sample size, but that's all we have to go off of. So look, man, there has to be change here this September. So
we're closer to that outcome than we are to getting a 6 or 7 seed.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right. Well, let's keep it pushing here, E.
Fuck.
Let's check in real quick on
the best keeper in the world.
So, Damian Loss, I did not know this game was going on Tuesday night, but thanks to our resident Louisville City fan, Trevor Allison, with the impeccable timing here on episode 173. We've got a Damian update. He was back in the lineup last night for a friendly against Cancun FC, our friends there from Palmer Field. Okay, says another team that has some Austin connections. Of course, Manny Perez got a start for Louisville City too. He was recently re-signed and brought back to the club. So, former Austin FC, fucking winger, striker, fullback. Goddamn. He says he didn't watch this one live and it was a friendly, so this is very brief. But Damian started and then came out in the 63rd minute with a 2-0 lead. Some really good sweeping action in the 23rd with a big clearance. He said he didn't think he faced a shot on target, and Louisville City had most of the ball when he was in. And that's it. Louisville City back in action this Saturday at Tulsa. So good luck to Damian and Louisville City once again in that match.
And like the main thing with Damian right now for me was him being okay in regard to the real life stuff that he had going on. So it's great to see him back in action there, and I absolutely wish him well. And getting back to this season and the push that Louisville has, obviously that team has championship aspirations, are probably the front runners to win the cup there. So best of luck for the stretch push to that entire unit, and particularly Damien.
Come on down to Palmer Field where the champions play. Get ready for the game. It's last business day.
Woo! God damn, that gets the blood pumping.
You got to love it. Last business day, piece of news right off the top. As soon as we hit record on this episode, Austin FC 2 tweeting out some pictures. Peter Grogan in town in a practice session said, first session in the books for Peter Grogan as we prepare for Friday night. So if this is his first training session here on Wednesday, I would be shocked if Peter Grogan was in and starting on Friday night at the pitch, but potentially on the team sheet. So we will keep our eye on that. And again, we left off last business day on Sunday, talking about those games that were coming up that night, right? We were watching the table. We're watching Sporting KC 2, Houston Dynamo Dos, and Timbers 2 out of Portland. We had the live good news, right, that Sporting 2 dropped points to LAFC 2, and then more good news in those 2 games at night. Dynados went up to Ventura County. They were up 2-0 in the first half on Sunday night, end up bringing home just a point in a PK loss. And then later on that evening, Timbers 2 get blasted 5-2 up in Tacoma. So again, outside of Houston getting just a point, and the fact they were up 2-0 in the first half, it just feels like, again, positive results after the unfortunate one for FCTO up there against Minnesota and their half first team on Sunday. So taking on Dynamo Dos here Friday night, 8 p.m. at the pitch. This team is going to need some significant support from our fan base, I think. So hoping to get out there at the pitch. Houston currently in 8th. Again, that is the final playoff spot there in the West. Haven't looked right. It can be a little bit different with the 2 divisions within the conferences that aren't really listed on FOTMOB. You can go look at that in a week or two. But sitting in 8th right now overall, 33 points after picking up that point in LA against Ventura. And they're pretty loaded too with first-team assets, but it's not really a surprise to us like Minnesota was. Exxon Arzu, right? Been injured since May, so I don't think we have to concern ourselves with him. But I did see that he officially signed a first-team deal 3 weeks ago, was with the club on loan from his team in, I believe, Haiti. So he's actually occupying a season-ending injury replacement player slot with their first team as a U22 initiative player signed through 2026 with options for 2027, 28, and 29. That is the first 2029 MLS contract I have seen perusing the other teams. And of course, on this roster, other first team guys, my dude, Steven Enorgiamfi, Usman Silla, another rookie, then Brooklyn Reigns, Kieran Sargent, and Tate Schmidt, 27-year-old, of course, with RSL, missed that final PK in the first round playoff match back in 2022, got an earful from Felipe during the celebration. Now, of course, splitting time between the Houston first team and the second team. He started against Ventura County at left back the other night. So did Steven Enorgiamfi, of course, wearing the number 9 for this team. He's only started 9 of his 18 appearances, dealt with some injuries throughout the year. They're actually led in goals by number 17, Gabe Siegel, another first-team contract guy. He's got 9 goals in his 9 next pro appearances, all starts. But they're actually captained by number 18, Diego Gonzalez, as one of the non-first-team players on this roster at the moment. So again, I think this is probably a more talented side than their standing would suggest. Also a team we have defeated on the road this year, earlier in the season, played them twice on the road already, if I recall correctly. But they're going to have talent kind of littered around the pitch here at the pitch on Friday. So it's not going to be a walk in the park for Austin FC too.
Absolutely. Kind of took the words right out of my mouth there. Wasn't this Houston team kind of floating around the upper portions of the Western Conference earlier in the season?
I believe at the beginning of the season, you're correct. Yeah.
So this matchup has historically, in the very short history of Next Pro for Austin, been a wonderful, wonderful game to watch. It's been heated. It's been highly contested. Both of these teams want to beat one another, which I love to see. You love to have that kind of intrastate rivalry there where it's like, you have 2 teams who don't like each other. And Austin sitting on 3 wins right now, Houston on 2, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a pivotal kind of game here, almost a 7-game series matchup where you can get to the 4th one. So I'm ready for it, and I'm not going to discredit their team at all. I think that they're much better than their roster, than their position in the table shows right now. But I also feel that way about the Austin FC2 team. Yeah. So I think this is going to be a game where you see both teams who are really jockeying, vying for position to get into those playoffs, put their best foot forward. And I can't lie. I'm kind of bummed I'm not going to be able to make it.
Yeah. You're leaving on Friday, right? For Tour de E up there. Right. So, but man, and thinking about us here, I am hoping we see CJ off the bench here. And again, if you don't have him, I'm also hoping that Jimmy is fit to start in this one, came off the bench on Sunday. Again, potentially Peter Grogan available up top off the bench, I would think. Maybe see Pino get in there, but Coach Utley has really not – I mean, he's preferred going with Micah
Yep.
of late up there. And I want to say we saw a game too where maybe Diego Abarca was in the middle. Maybe I'm misremembering there.
I think you're right. And like
Yeah.
you talk about the Grogan kid and everything like that, and you see the additions that have been made who are kind of coming along now, the Abarcas, the Bonacheras,
Van Ryn. Yeah.
Yep, all these guys who are now kind of contributing in larger and larger ways. So I'm excited for Grogan. I'm not necessarily sure we're going to see him here, but we got to get this game. Again, this is just a matchup for Austin fans where it's like if you're invested and ready to be hurt potentially by not making the playoffs with either of these teams, this is one to watch and one to be excited for.
Yeah, and I also think, again, we were missing Irvin Torres last week, or on Sunday, rather.
Yep.
I'm not sure if that was a yellow card accumulation suspension or what, but hoping he's back in the team as well.
The Alonso thing?
Oh, yeah, coming out at halftime, right?
Yeah, so a lot of questions here. Like, is CJ around? Is he back? Is he fit? Is he ready to roll? What happened with Alonso? Are we going to see Grogan? What's up with Torres? So, like, there's a lot of things that are kind of looming around this game that are all going to impact it in a pretty great way. So, it's going to be a fun one, though. I tell you that.
Yeah. Well, one thing left to do here. How much is Austin FC2 winning by on Friday night at the pitch?
Again, I'm not going to discredit this Houston team. I think they're good, and I think that they have guys who can really, really play. Your boy Steven there, I know you're so bummed that he's in that putrid orange color.
Know. Disgusting.
Which kind of got that going on here today. It might be.
Oh, boo!
That might be a good little jinx. Let me shotgun this real quick.
I'll
take Austin. I'll take Austin 2-1. I want to say 3-1. I want to say that, but I just can't get there without having some clarification and some clarity on what is going on with CJ and Alonso, because you look at the most important players on this team, and those are the two guys for me.
Yep. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to match you here, 2-1 for me. On both predictions here coming into the weekend, a 2-1 for me. So 2-1 for both of us. Just like with the first team, don't care how you get it done, boys. Let's just bring home the 3 points, keep climbing that table in the playoff push. And we're talking about potential yellow card suspension for Irvin Torres. For the first team, Sebastian Driussi, Brendan Heinzike, Danny Pereira, and Johan Valencia all on yellow card accumulation caution coming into the weekend. One last thing to touch on here, little academy update, right? I mean, we talked about Viggo Ortiz off the top and leaving the club, but with the guys that are still here, that academy season is now underway. So I know the U14s won 5-2. Our buddy Tyler had a goal and an assist, and then left wing Luke Andrea had a goal and an assist. At right wing, Toby Trujillo, a hat trick at striker. So there's your 5 goals for the U14s. U13s won 5-0. So the young boys certainly getting it done. I think I've got the other 3 scores here as well, but trying to pull those up at the moment.
That's exciting. For all the things we've been trying to find to get excited about, at least we got a couple teams who can score more than a goal, or who can put more than 3 shots on target, or 0 shots on target, 3 shots total. So that's great. Yeah, I love getting these updates about the academy, man.
Yeah, well, and more good ones here. U18s 3-0 over Houston Rangers. 5-2 loss for the U16s against Houston Rangers. Then U15s a 1-1 draw, also against Houston Rangers. So we're keeping our eye on the academy as they start their new season. And again, so 3-2 there on opening weekend. Mm-hmm. Not bad. It's better than my fantasy football record on week 1. It's 3-3. Okay, it's not too bad, but still better.
I was 3-3. You know.
Yeah, there you go. The epitome of mediocrity is the North End podcast. At least when it comes to fantasy football, when it comes to Austin FC podcasts, cream of the crop, in my opinion. All right, everybody. I say, anything else for you here before we shut it down on episode 173?
Let's get it.
I did notice one thing that we forgot about last month. we passed our little 2-year anniversary. So we're into year 3 now of the North End podcast. Hopefully many more, 100-year war, 100-year pod. We appreciate you tuning in and rocking with us here on the North End podcast. Again, another note, or just the same note from the top of the podcast. Next episode, Monday, hopefully coming out right around lunchtime on Monday, just to accommodate E's rest day on his cycling trip. Good luck to you, sir. Good health to you, sir, on the trip. Obviously, we will be in touch, and we hope the rest of you enjoy your weekend, and come back here on Monday for another edition of the North End podcast. Until then, he's E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.